Hi, this is DarkFox127 and welcome to another Skyrim Creation Kit tutorial video. Today we're going to be working with followers. So I know I've done this tutorial twice before. The first one was a little hit and miss when I got started. The second one was a little more advanced, but this one's really going to try and cover everything about followers. So hopefully I won't miss anything. This is going to be quite a long tutorial, so please bear with me and be patient. Before we get started, what I want to mention is there are mods out there which make adjustments to the way that followers work. Stuff like the UFO mod, the Ultimate Followers Overhaul, that may have an effect on your own created followers, meaning that they may not actually work. So it won't be down to my tutorial if you're having problems. If at the end of this something doesn't work, then it's either you've slipped up somewhere, you've made an error and you need to go back and just check your work, or you have a mod that could be conflicting with your newly created follower. So just bear that in mind. So first thing we want to do is we want to go under actors here and actor, and then you'll obviously get a nice big list of actors down here. We're just going to alternate click and new. Now when the box first opens up, if it's not on the traits tab, we want to set that to traits, obviously. So I'm just going to explain what a few of these options on here are. First, you've got your form ID. If you don't know what that is, then we're in a bit of trouble already. That's just their unique identification code, if you like. So in here we're just going to put DF127 actor follower. I'm going to call him Barney Blue. Those of you that follow my tutorials might well know of Barney Blue. And short name, you can put a short name in, so I think this refers to more quest lines. When you're in a quest it might say grab Barney's bottle or something rather than Barney Blue's bottle, so it's just a shorter version. So you could put Barney in here. I mean, even if you wanted you could put Big B, but we're gonna put Barney. His character gen preset, this allows Barney's face, or well, your follower's face, whatever follow you make, this allows that face to become available in the preset list of faces in the game. When you create your own character, you can actually have whatever you create here come up as a preset. I've not checked that myself, but that is apparently what that option does. Essential means that your character won't be able to die. Nobody will be able to kill them. And if this doesn't say encumbrance 0 out of 200, it will have the option protected. So if it says protected, it's going to mean that you can't kill your follower, so you can't accidentally kill them, but other people will be able to kill them. Encumbrance is obviously something to do with them having an inventory weight, I think. Respawn means that obviously once they're gone they can respawn back, so once they're dead you'll be able to get them back eventually when they respawn. Unique is actually going to be pretty important. We're not going to tick any of these yet for a certain reason I'll mention in a moment, but the unique option means that they are completely unique to the game. There needs to only be one version of them in the kit. If you tick unique and then you have multiple copies of them somewhere in the game, you'll probably get an error when you load up the kit saying you've got two versions of a unique person. Which one's the original? Summonable means when you're making a conjuration spell, the actor's going to have this summonable option ticked, so they'll show up in the menu to be able to summon them. That's not really important for our followers, but I'll mention it anyway. Is Ghost means that nothing will be able to pass through them, so if you swing a sword it should pass right through them and no damage will be able to be done to them. You won't be able to hit them with fire damage, any kind of magic. They should essentially be a ghost. Invulnerable is pretty similar, apart from they're not really a ghost form, so they can't be damaged by anything, but they can be physically hit. So when you swing a weapon at them you'll see that effect hit them. Doesn't bleed. When you do hit them with a weapon you won't get the blood effect come up if you have this box ticked. Simple actor sort of disables most of the facial animations when they're smiling and mouth movement. That disables all that. I'm not quite sure what you'd need to use that for, maybe just for testing quests or something, but that's what that's used for. We probably don't need that ourselves. Doesn't affect stealth meter. This is what you mostly get on animals in terms of when a deer spots you. You'll notice that your stealth meter while crouching doesn't actually change. When you're around the world and somebody's about to see you, it usually changes. Ticking this means that that won't be affected at all, so you'll have no idea if this person's actually seen you or not. Could be useful for sort of immersive questline things, but again we probably don't need that. Destructible object and dialogue we don't need to mess with. If you were doing custom dialogue, then you might want to click that dialogue box to access their quest section of their dialogue. Papyrus scripting, this becomes available once you've sort of confirmed your actor at least once and then reopen the window, which we'll actually have to do in a moment or two, but we're not really going to mess with quests for our actor today. Actor base is if you want to base this actor off another one, so if we wanted Alvor, you could select Alvor and it'll base them on Alvor, and then once you select this option, it'll auto fill a load of the options in and you can select which parts you want to take from Alvor's character. So you could have his traits, stats, but not have his scripts or factions. So we're not going to base ours off anyone for today, we're going to make one entirely from scratch. Now the reason I said that you don't want to tick any of these boxes straight away that you want, so going through the time ticking the boxes, is when you go to another trait it forgets the majority of them. So remember, don't bleed, but it forgets the majority of them. So once you've given it an ID, name and short name if you really want one, go ahead and click OK and just confirm your actor ID, and then we're just going to go down and find our actor back. Now as you reopen it, we can carry on. I'm going to go and tick those afterwards. It's probably best that you do that last when you've set everything. What you can do is you can probably tick them, confirm it, open it up, and it should remember what was last confirmed, if that makes sense. It's a bit silly. The race is pretty important. In this case we're going to use a humanoid if we just want the normal follower dialogue. If you want to make an animal follower, then I do have tutorials on that. You're going to have to go and root and find those out, or I'll leave them in the link in the description if I remember. But we're not going to be doing an animal follower because that is a much more detailed process. So we're just going to go and create a Nord. So we're going to go with Nord race. If we just click preview down here, you can preview the body and you can preview the head. The head's going to come in handy later on when we're doing the actual face generation stuff. So we just want to preview the body here. If you're wondering why yours is sort of zooming in and out really quickly, if you just alternate click in that box once, you'll be able to change the preview movement speed to sort of the rotation and the zoom. I usually set my zoom to 0.01. That's usually the main thing that makes it quite difficult to zoom in and out and see your character. So you'll want to set that up, otherwise it's just going to be like, whoa, can't zoom into the right sort of angle. So the skin, the reason I previewed was you can select different skins which have an effect on the body. So it might be a skin that adds like a tattoo or a certain stuck clothing to them that can't be removed. I don't tend to use this, but you can if you like. Just be aware that that might affect inventory items in terms of what they're wearing and stuff. The height and weight are pretty self-explanatory. Just be careful not to set these too high in terms of height or too low, because when they use an idle marker, if they're too big they'll shrink into it, and if they're too small they'll sort of expand into it and it'll look really silly. So if you are going to adjust this, adjust it really slightly, not too much. The weight, you can up the weight if you want them to be really quite big. If you change it dramatically you'll see the difference. So we'll make Barney, we'll give him a little bit of weight. The faraway model is how they're going to look from a distance. Now I don't usually use this, but you can mess around with it if you like, and I'm not quite sure what the scaling is for the distance wise, but it's sort of like a LOD versions of items, just a cut down version of them from a distance to cut down on how much it has to render. The voice type, now this is really important. What we're going to do, we're going to go under world data, I think. No, we're not. We're going to go under miscellaneous. Oh, we've got to think where I'm going. There we go. Miscellaneous and form list. If you go under miscellaneous and form list, and we're going to type in follower in the filter. Now you'll see here voices, followers, and you've got all, neutral, orc, and rough. Now these are the different follower voices that are available. So if you select a voice under this list that isn't within any of these 4 form lists, they're not going to work. So the best thing to do is click all, and you can see all the ones that we can use. So you've got a wide variety. So I'm just going to go with, say if we want him to be just a neutral kind of fellow, we've got these options. Gives you an idea of how they're going to speak. Let's have him male, even tone, accented. if I can find it. There we go. Now, I have said before that you need to set the disposition up, but it seems that this is probably leaked across from the old creation kit of Oblivion. And apparently, according to the wiki, this isn't actually used at all. But I'm still going to set it to about 78 just because it makes me feel better. I don't like the number 35 in there. It just looks weird. But I don't think you really have to set the disposition base. I always just stick 78 in there. It's just a habit. The weapons list here and the alignment, apparently they aren't used either. So like I said, I think the reason why some of these options are in here but they aren't used is because they might be used in some of Bethesda's other games that use the same sort of kit. The death item is an interesting one. It has to be a leveled item. So if I can figure out where I'm going here, I don't use level items too much. If we go under items and leveled item and just put the word death in there, you'll see a list of death items. This is what you'll pick up off the body by default when they die. So you can create your own sort of death item leveled list, and then you can select it in there. If you want them to have say a tank card on them or something when they die, you could do that. Opposite gender animations, this is something I've usually skipped before, and that reminds me, you can change Barney Blue to a female or whatever actor you're using. That's how you make them female up there. But if you've got, say, a male and you actually want him to have female animations, so run around like a female waving his arms about, or whatever the difference in animation is, or if you want a female to sort of stamp around like a man and walk like a man, then you can do that. You can tick that box. That's really useful for if you've got maybe a larger female who you don't want walking with a certain the female animations if it just makes it look odd. It's entirely up to you. So that option's just there. Okay. I hope I didn't offend anyone there. Anyway, it's just trying to put it across. Basically, you can switch those animations. Now, and that's all just one tab. This is fun. Right, the stats. The stats are obviously really, really important, and people are usually really picky and not sure what to do with the stats. The stats, you've got two options. The first option is that you can set this level to a standard level that never changes, so we could have them level 30. But the problem with that is you could go and find this follower at the start of the game and it could probably really unbalance your game, and this follower could just be going and smashing everything on the head and killing everything for you, not giving you a look in. Or it could be the other way around. There could be two lower level, and when a level 50 comes up and uses your follower, they're like, this guy's useless, he's dead in an instant. But you can set it to a standard level if you like, so that's how you do that. Auto calculate stats is probably the best way of doing it, so it'll calculate the stats depending on the class that you select down here. You can create your own class, which I'll show you in a moment. The speed, I used to recommend that you pump that up by about 15 so they keep up with you, but I do believe that the game had an update along the line somewhere around 1.6, I'm not sure which update it was, but it automatically boosted up the speed of followers, as they did recognise that was a bit of an issue in the earlier versions of the game. So the level, if you set it standard, then it'll just calculate it that way. You can offset the health, magicka and stamina, or you can tick this PC level multiply or multiple. You can have a minimum level like they can be and a maximum level, and it'll stick them somewhere around your own character's level, which is really useful. So usually I put that to about 50. Some people like to put it to like 100, ridiculously high, or 80. I'm just going to put mine to 50 so they can't go over level 50. That's probably around fair, and you probably want them to be at least level 10, but it's entirely up to you. You can put level 1 if you like, and it'll just affect these stats depending on your character's level. Now, as you can see, the auto calculate stats is automatic when you do that option. And what you'll also notice is they should level up alongside you, so when you level up, their stats should get boosted a little as well automatically, again depending on their class. This bleed out override here, that's just how long sort of they're left bleeding out on the floor if they're an essential actor, or when they are just knocked down injured. It's how long they stay on the floor, I think. So you can mess around with that. I don't usually touch that. The class, I'll show you. You can do this under character and class, and if we just wipe that filter, you'll see all the different sort of classes here, and you can go ahead, alternate click new, and you can make your own class. So I'm not going to go into too much detail with these classes here. It's a little too much to mess with, but yeah, you can change around the classes, give it an ID, give it a name, and you can mess with all this stuff. And it might be a good idea to open a different class just to get an idea of what you need to be setting things as, so you're not setting them too high. I think it's all 1 to 10 in those boxes. So I'll leave that for you to mess around with. I might do a tutorial on that at some point, but it can be quite a strange thing to deal with, and in my experience it hasn't been a great thing to use. The stats have ended up being a bit rubbish, to be honest. But we're going to set this guy to just be, let's have a look, Combat Barbarian, and we'll change those stats accordingly. Now you might want to see what stats are higher, and when you go to adding the spells and perks you might want to take this into account. That's entirely up to you, we'll see that in a moment. But yeah, that's it. Level multi here, you can change that, but I think it's best that you leave that at 1. I used to say to set it at 6, but I think I got that confused with something else. You want to just leave that as 1, you're probably best as. You can refer to the wiki, which will tell you what you need to set that as, if you do need to change it all. Now we're going to the Factions tab. Now the Factions tab's obviously really important when it comes to followers, because if you miss anything else, anything out, then this isn't going to work. So you want to alternate click new in that box and type the word follower in. Now you'll see a number of things come up here. You've got stuff for animal followers and other things, but we just want the current follower faction first. Then we're going to add the potential follower faction there. So if we click current follower faction, make sure it's highlighted and tap F2, and you'll see that you're able to change this value. Now you need to set this to -1. If you don't do that, you'll have trouble and things won't work properly, if they work at all. Now that's all you have to set, and you'll notice here something called the assigned crime faction. This is if anybody steals something off them or displeases them in any way and it's a crime, then this is the faction that it's going to sort of attach the bounty to. So if they live in Whiterun, you're going to want to add the Whiterun crime faction onto them. It's in here somewhere, but once you add that crime faction on, you'll have it selectable in the box, and you'd want to select that. So it'd mean if you stole anything from their home in Whiterun, if they had a home there, then it would attach itself to the Whiterun bounty, because you have different bounties for different holds, if I'm correct. So that's really all the factions that you need. You can set other factions which dictate certain dialogues, but I won't be going into that. Relationship is a pretty important part here. You have to set a relationship with the player from this follower. Now the way that you have to do this is they have to have that unique box ticked. So what I'm going to do, I am now going to actually tick that unique box, and I'm going to confirm it first. Now if you try and add a relationship without that unique box being ticked, then it's not going to allow you to set the player and that NPC as the sort of unique two people with a relationship. It's just going to glitch basically. Well, it's going to look like a glitch. It's not actually a glitch, but it will not work. So you need to make sure that they're ticked as unique, and then we'll reopen that box, and hopefully it should now keep that noted, even if we change tabs now, that they are unique. So as long as they are unique there, ticked in the box, you should now be able to go alternate click and new and set a relationship up. So I'm just going to give it a unique ID. I usually put REL on the end for relationship. Excuse me. Now as you can see, it's auto-filled the DF127 active follower. That's automatically put the ID of the follower that it's attached to on. You can do it through the object window, but this is the best way of doing it. So as you can see, what it would do is that your actor wouldn't show in that list. Only unique actors show in this list, which is why you can see why it wouldn't work if they weren't ticked as unique. Now the child NPC needs to be player, so type player. Sometimes that can glitch and be really slow, so you'll have to just wait for it to catch up. The relationship, you can set it to anything you want. I usually set it to ally, and the association type you don't necessarily need, but you could set that up if you want. Secret, I don't think you really need to tick that. I'd leave that. Keywords we don't use. AI data. Now the aggression is really important. You can have unaggressive or aggressive. and that shouldn't affect anything. It depends how they react in battle, I think, and how they react to other NPCs. If you put very aggressive or frenzied, then none of this is going to work in terms of a follower. They're just going to lash out and kill everyone around them. So we don't want that, so we're just going to leave it as unaggressive. Also, if you put them as aggressive and you were to conjure them with a spell or some other way, they tend to just get pissed off by that, and it just ups them into very aggressive or frenzied for some reason. So just be aware, if you're dealing with a follower, you probably want them as unaggressive. Now, the mood, this is sort of more to do with facial expressions, not the way they're going to react. So they're not going to be like in a pissed off mood, going like, you know, they're just going to get the facial expression of the certain mood that you pick. So if you pick sad, they're probably going to be walking around with a sad face, and if you pick neutral, they're just going to be literally neutral, no reaction on their face at all. And if they're happy, then they're going to go around smiling probably. So let's just go with neutral. Now, energy, I didn't know what that did, but on the wiki page it actually states that it changes the way that they react with sandbox packages, sorry. So when they're wandering around a location being told to use different items, it sort of judges how much they move, so how much energy they've got. So if you set that to 0, they're going to be lazy, they're hardly ever going to move. They're probably going to sit on the same damn chair in an entire inn for the countless hours rather than get up and move about a bit. And if you set that to 100, obviously they're going to be lively, they're going to sit on a chair, get bored, get up and go to another chair and do all that. So that's actually pretty useful. I'm going to put Barney to about 30. Assistance is pretty important. This means if you leave this as helps nobody, then you're probably going to go and hit somebody in the face or need backup in a fight. And if this is helps nobody, Barney might well just stand there and not give a damn that you're getting your face smashed in. So you're probably going to want help allies. If you set to an ally like he's in our relationship, he'll help. If he was set to a friend but he only helps allies, he might not actually help. So usually you want to set this to help friends and allies, just to cover all that. Morality is a really cool, interesting one when it comes to followers. You'll tend to find that some followers don't follow certain commands when you tell them to do things. So you'll say, go and kill that person. They'll be like, no, never, not doing that. And that's because their morality is set to have no violence at all. So you can say violence but only against enemies, or you can say property crime only, so they'll steal things but they won't kill people, or you'll just put any crime, so they'll do anything, they'll kill people, they'll steal, they'll do whatever, or you can put no crime and just say that they won't steal things and they won't kill people for you, they'll only react to hostile enemies. Aggro radius is usually to do with how pissed off they get the closer you get and when they're likely to attack. That's usually used for stuff like animals and enemies, so we're not going to use that. Combat style is very similar to the class. The combat style is how they're going to fight, how much they're going to use certain weapons. Again, you can create one yourself, which is... it is here somewhere. I'm not going to spend too much time if I can't see it. There it is. Combat style. Again, wipe that out. Let's just open one up and take a look. You'd alternate click new, make your own. So combat styles, you can really offset different things and really play around with a follower and make them use like certain types of melee attacks or allow dual wielding quite a lot. This can be quite useful. Usually you select a default. If you really want to go in depth with your follower, then you can go ahead and edit that combat system. Just be careful not to edit any of the default ones and make one of your own. Gift filter, I'm not actually sure what that one is. It might be if they on the odd occasion like to give you a gift and say you've been a good friend to me. It might actually be sort of the selection of items that they can give you. That's quite interesting. But we're going to leave that. AI packages I'm going to come back to in a moment once we actually place them in to a cell. Now, default outfit and sleep outfit's quite a funny one. Sleep outfit never seems to work, never seems to do anything, but I just set it as default sleep outfit just so it's not set to 0. And there are actually options in the AI package which say use sleep outfit, but when I tick it, nothing ever happens. So that might be another thing that only really works with different games and not with Skyrim. Geared up weapons, don't select that. Now, the default outfit is what they'll be wearing on them, but you cannot take from them. So you can only exchange items that are within their inventory. So if you set a default outfit and give them, say, some ebony armor, and click preview, if you gave them full ebony armor but had it in the default outfit, you won't be able to take the armor off them, and they are only going to wear items that are better than that they are wearing. So if you're giving them a set of iron armor and he's wearing ebony, he's going to go, what the hell do you want me to do with this? I'm not wearing that, I've got my ebony armor. So what I tend to do is I set the default outfit to the casual stuff that I want them to wear when they're out and about, when they're not with you. So I usually set this to, say, just because it's on my head right now, on the top of my head, I'm just going to set them to some normal clothes. Now this means that any armor you give them is obviously better than that set of clothes, so they're going to be like, yay, iron armor, I love that. And what I usually do, if you do want them to have any armor, I usually put it in a chest near them, somewhere in their home that I make for them, or I put it in their inventory. And a really good thing about putting it in their inventory is that you can take it off them, so that they're not going to wear that over the armor that you give them. So you can say, no, you are not wearing that ebony armor, and then you can give them some iron armor and force them to get the crap kicked out of them with the iron armor, which is really useful. What it also means is you can probably take their armor off them and you can actually upgrade it and give it them back. So that's the best way of doing it. A good thing is not to give them any armor at all. The other thing about putting the armor in their inventory means that they'll only put it on once they're following you and they go into the outside world. So what you'll notice is, if we've got Barney Blue here sat inside of an inn and he's wearing his normal default clothes but he's got his ebony armor on him, and then we tell him to follow us, and then you go outside, he'll put his ebony armor on, going, oh, we're ready for battle, we're going out, we're going to get fighting, and he'll put it on. So that's really cool. So what I'm going to do, just to sort of demonstrate that when we go in game, is I am going to give him some ebony armor. I'm just going to give him the few items, not everything, and we'll give him some boots. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to add him some general items like a torch and some gold. So that's how you add items into the inventory. Alternate click, new, and then selecting the object, and you can actually change the count, the number of objects, which is useful. You can, I don't think the health really applies. That might have applied back in Oblivion when weapons had sort of damage on them, so you could have given them a rusty dagger in that sense. The ownership is for each item. You can set whether it's actually his. If you don't set any options to this in terms of what faction owns it, what NPC owns it, or any required ranks, if you don't set anything to it, then by default the person who is carrying it owns that item. So it's Barney's basically. The preview level is pretty good. If you alternate click and new and type in L item and you stick like a leveled item in, so you give him a leveled potion. Sometimes it's good to give them leveled items so that when you meet up with them and you want them to have some standard health potions on them, they're going to be level to your level. So if you're a low level, you don't want him carrying around really high powered healing potions that you can take off him and sort of black into the game when you shouldn't have them. So leveled items are a good option. So if I say I want him to have 5 leveled potions of any type, you can click in preview level, type in what level you want to pretend that you're at, and see what he'd have on him when you're around level 4. And as you can see, it's leveled up some fairly decent potions on him. So that's a really good menu. But if you're only level 1, he's going to have some really rubbish stuff on him, just low level stuff. And obviously if we say that I'm level 100, he's going to have some pretty powerful potions on him there, like 4, 2, pretty random. And that's really useful, so we'll see that work as well in game. Now I'm just going to confirm this, and this is something that you should do quite regularly, is just really keep saving it, because the kit, as we all know, has the tendency to crash sometimes. Just going to reload that up. Like I said, this is a really long tutorial, but I really want to go in depth. Spells and perks are really interesting. Another thing that we have noticed is that scripts menu has become available. Now spells and perks get really, really interesting. With spells, if you alternate click to add one, it's new, and for some amazing reason for the perks it's add, because new is creating a new perk. Nice to see they kept some consistency there, but you want to go add for the bottom one and new for the top one. So you can add different perks. Now it really is usually recommended to do do this because it gives them a bit more of a character. And I always say that you add certain perks like Lightfoot. That means that they're not going to set off any traps, which is a really annoying thing with the vanilla followers. You'll dodge the trap, which is great, and then you'll stop to fight something, and that moron goes and steps on a trap, swings around, hits you in the face, and kills you. Thank you. Brilliant. So I would recommend that perk. And there is actually a mod that's done that, and I think all they've done is added the Lightfoot on. Genius. So we need to the perks. Obviously, you type in the perk that you want. So I can't even think of a perk. Yeah. Sorry, spell. We're adding spells. So if you want to add a spell, put flame spell. The things with spells is you want to be careful what spells you give them. If you give them a really high leveled spell that they really like and want to use, but they don't have the Magicka to support that spell, then you're going to be stuck in a problem where they're going and they can't power up the spell, and they're not firing any kind of spell because they are determined that they can use this one spell, but they don't have the Magicka. So just be really careful when messing around with those spells. So you can play around with that. That gets really fun. You don't need to mess around with sounds. You don't need to mess with animations or attack data. I'm really not going to go into that kind of detail. Now the character gen parts is where it gets really fun and exciting. Now you want to click head under there. One thing to mention, which is still not fixed, and I don't think they have any intention of fixing it now, so we have to deal with it. But if you're dealing with an Argonian race, I think it's the only race affected, you'll notice that when you click head, the Argonian face isn't there, and it's just literally 2 eyeballs and 1 or 2 other things, and it's like, okay, I can't see anything. So you can't see your changes happen in real time as you can here. So what you have to do, usually you have to click the preview on the main one, zoom into the Argonian's face, and then every time you change something, force it to preview in the full sort of view. And that's the only way to sort of edit Argonians. I know it's annoying, but there's not a lot we can do about that. Unless someone's got a fix for it, please leave a comment, let me know how the hell you do it, because I have no idea. But as you can see, you can change like here the face, the eyes, the hair, the facial hair, the eyebrows. All these options won't be available on certain characters, like females won't have facial hair. You might be able to force it through creating your own race, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. But you can mess with that. There's all sorts of options here. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can find the scars somewhere in the object window and drag and drop them into additional head parts, but I always forget where those are, and they can be a bit funny to see, so you have to re-hit the preview to see the scars show. But yeah, we can go through, we can give them a different hairstyle. That's cool. Oh, he looks good. Anyway, so we're going to leave it at that, but you can go down, and one thing that I recommend that you do is change the skin tone to something that you like. You can see it, you can darken the skin tone or higher it, and then really adjust the colour of the face in different areas. And you do this by selecting, say, the eye sockets, and under preset colour here you can make your own custom colour, but select colour. I wouldn't recommend this, I don't usually mess with this, but you can create your own colours. But you set a preset colour, and you can see that it sort of changes. So you can put like red tints around the eyes, and it just adds that extra detail, like blushy cheeks and stuff like that. It really adds some nice detail. You can obviously go down, select war paint, and you'll see the changes happen. So you can give them some war paint. So I'm just going to leave it at that, but you can go down, as you can see, sort of tattoos, dirt, war paint. Dirt's really useful for if they're a blacksmith. Good idea to put dirt on them to say, like, well, yep, they're working, they're quite mucky. But you can do all that. The hair colour is in a different location up here, so you select that, you should see the changes. There we go. And face complexion is more to do with their age, so they'll get more wrinkles if we made him old there, as you can see. Or you can give him a really young looking face. And now you can really start to make a nice unique looking follower. Now the next part is the character gen morphs. This is shaping the entire face, changing the nose, the mouth, the jaw, the eyes, everything. You can really change the shape of things. So I'm not going to mess with this too much. He's looking pretty ropey. There we go, make him really angry. Right, so you can mess around with that, that's really useful. And the face animation previews you don't really want to mess with either. Leave that. And once we're done, we're going to go ahead and click OK. Now, before we place them into the game, you've got one big problem that people have always experienced, and there is a way around it, and it's the grey face bug. People notice that when they put stuff like war paint or put the colouring in the face. It's okay, train coming past, great timing. You'll notice that the textures on the face do not load, and they've got literally a grey face and the rest of their body's normal colour. Now, the way that you fix this is that you click on your actor in the object window, make sure they're highlighted, hold down Control, left Control, and press F4. And then you'll get this little menu come up. If you don't get it come up, then you're having a normal Creation Kit day where it's just not working, it's glitching. Try reloading it or restarting your machine. Export face gen data for the MPC. Click Yes. Done. Now, what this does is this places two files in the meshes and textures folder of your Skyrim data folder. So if you go under data, meshes, face gen, and it follows through quite a lot of folders. If you haven't got any mods installed, then it should just be a list of single folders, and eventually you'll get to a folder named after your mod. In fact, I could probably just show you. Wrong one. And there goes my disk tray. Right, now if we go under, mine's in a different location entirely. Yours is usually on your C drive unless you've done a custom install, but make your way to your data folder, and if we go under meshes here, as you can see, I've got a load of folders in here from different mods, but you need to go under actors, character, face gen data, face genome, and then you'll get the folder named after your mod, and it'll be something roughly the same in the textures folder. And if we just go under our followers resource, there's the file which is basically the face gen textures and meshes that you'll find for our new follower. And what you'll need to do is make sure that they are attached to the archive, which I will have a tutorial on, and I'll leave a link in the description when it's done. It's basically you're going to need to upload these files with your mod, otherwise people that download your mod are going to have that same grey face bug problem, but it will fix it on your machine if you just leave it at that for Control and F4. So if the characters for just yourself, then that's fine. That'll look fine now, and you'll go in game, their face won't be grey and horrible, and you'll have all the textures and that war paint that we've added. Now the only process left is to place them in the world. So I'm going to go to Tamriel. I'm just going to dump him in Riverwood. I'm just going to save again. So I'm going to load up Riverwood. If you get any errors with cells, usually just yes to all or ignore. And yours might take some time depending on your machine spec, so be patient with the kit when loading up cells. As you can see, mine's taking a little while here. So we really want to wait for this to load. There we go. So make sure everything's loaded before you drag them in, otherwise you're going to keep dragging them in and they're not in there. One thing I did actually forget is set to unique. I'm just going to tick protected. As you can see, that's changed to protected. It was like encumbrance or whatever before. Protected means that, like I said, you won't be able to kill them, but others will. Now, that should be it. That's probably all I really want ticked on him. Okay. You could set essential if you don't want them to die, but then you want to just drag and drop them into the location that you want them. Just going to press Z there and drag him up. Press F to drop him to the floor, make sure he's not embedded into the floor, and I'm going to put him here. So there's our nice new follower there, the new and improved Barney Blue. And that is it. Once he's placed down, I did say that I'd be sort of just covering AI packages. I will have a tutorial, a newer tutorial on AI packages, hopefully, at some point. But just by default, I recommend that if you don't want to mess around with packages and you just want him to move around in the area that you place him, put in default sandbox. And you want to select one of these default sandbox editor locations, and the number is the sort of radius that he'll wander around in, so the bigger is probably the better. So we'll go with default sandbox current location 1024, and that means that he'll just wander around in the general location. So that'll do just fine. And we'll leave it at that. So I am now just going to go in game, and we are going to see Barney Blue, a fully working follower hopefully. And that'll be that, so let's hop in game. Okay, so here we are, and as you can see, Barney's found himself a ledge to lean on.
Good morning. Need something?
Just tell him to follow us.
Lead the way.
You can also see that the face textures are fine because we exported them with the Control and F4. And if he just walks over here we go.
I've got your back.
And if we just talk to him,
So what do you want me to carry?
take a look at his items. They always get the belted tunic on them, which is really weird, but you can usually use that to sort of force them to put their armour on when you take an item off them in terms of apparel. It usually forces them to put the armour on. He'll also put his armour on if you're in an insay and you walk outside, then he'll notice that he needs it on, and he'll put it on himself. So really nice touch. There's also the glitch with followers that you get with the standard Skyrim game, the vanilla game, with the bows, which they're always using a hunting bow and they keep duplicating in the inventory. There might be mods out there that do fix that, but you just want to be careful that those mods don't affect the actual followers themselves or creating your own. And as you can see, it's leveled some items because I'm using just a standard COC command character. They're quite low, but that is it. So there's our new and improved Barney Blue, our follower, fully working. I know the tutorial is pretty long, but it's nice and detailed, and it'll get the best out of your followers and the best out of your mod. So thank you very much for watching. Please check out my main website and my anti-social websites, all of the usual. Leave comments below, but before you comment, just check that what you're asking hasn't already been answered by somebody else, answered by me somewhere else, or in fact answered in the video. So please feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.